Welcome back to Buzzworthy. I'm your host, Shalacia Harris. And today in the studio, we have Jose Moran-Mirabal from Tessella
Biosciences?
Tessella Biosciences. I should have known that. Welcome to the show, Jose.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure.
It really is a pleasure. And, for today's episode, I didn't even do a synopsis of you because the only thing I've been telling anyone is I'm interviewing someone who basically created, human flesh.
Okay.
And that's all I think our audience needs to know to start this conversation. And I might be wrong on the whole human flesh thing, but it's pretty close. Jose, before we even got into this space of innovating, and this is really groundbreaking in so many ways, what do you think set you up to become an innovator?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that even from when I was young, I was always looking at ways to make new things or come up with new solutions. I grew up in a family of scientists.
Oh.
And so my father is a scientist. He's been working in academia his whole life. I have uncles that are also scientists. So the environment was just right. And they always encourage us to go and look and find for yourself. So not just read, but also try things out with your hands, try to put things together. And I think that really is what primed me to then come into an academic career, and then me, myself, and my students, because the students are really the life of the lab, to go on and do some innovations.
That's very cool. What's the first thing that you made that you said, wow, that's cool, I love the process of creating something?
Yeah, I think if I go back to my childhood, I think the very first thing where I felt, wow, we can make something with our hands that, does something cool or does something different, was with my cousin, who then also went on to become an academic. And we were just making toys, right? We were making toys in Christmas. And we were just making these toys that were very simple, rope and a piece of cardboard and a piece of wood, and just making these toys that could go up or down. And it was just, figuring out a way to put them together and just playing, right? I think when I see my career, I always feel like in the lab, I'm playing, right? And it's fun.
Yeah. That, I think, is such a great way to look at your career, because that says to me that you truly love what you do. And me on the other side, I'm not like a huge fan of academia because I feel like I can't play. I feel like there's so many rules in it, and I like to play outside the sandbox. So how did you find playing within like an academic environment like this?
I mean, I think it's a matter of the environment again. I always come back to the environment. You have to find the people that you like working with and that encourage you to do the things that you want to do. And so, when I was in undergraduate, I had a number of friends and we were all interested in going into the lab. And there were a few key professors that actually encouraged us to go into the lab and spend some time there playing with instruments. We didn't know what we were doing at the time, maybe, but we were quickly finding out what we could do. The other thing is just seeing with your eyes something that's happening. And so my supervisor for my master's in Mexico, Rosa Maria, she was the first one that introduced me to microscopy in the sense of advanced microscopy, and that you could see the microscopic world through a lens.
Wow.
And I think that was very, very cool for me. And that was the moment where I said, oh, I want to know more. And this is the area that I really like and where I can see myself going for many, many years.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I love the path, and I love that you talked about having the right people around you, because that does make an environment, easier to be in, and then to be yourself, be your authentic self that can show up every day and love what you do. So as you went along this journey, you eventually ended up at McMaster University here in Hamilton. What was it about McMaster that brought you here?
So it's an interesting question. when I was going into the market, right, looking for professor positions, I was looking both at the US, because at the time I was finishing my position in the US, and Canada. And Canada initially didn't register for me, but during my grad school, I had been visiting Canada through a friend, right? A local connection here in Mississauga. And through him, I discovered Canada, really. And it was wonderful to see. I really enjoyed my trips here. And when the opportunity presented that there was a position that was opening at McMaster University, I thought, oh, this is an area where I'm already somewhat familiar with, and I would feel comfortable going to. I also found that, coming to Canada for the family is also a nice environment where I could see myself raising kids, right? And so I have two kids.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's what attracted me. In the end, when I was interviewing for academic positions, there were some offers from the US, there were some offers from Canada, and then it was really a balance act, right? What's the university like? What do they encourage? What's the environment that my family is going to be like? And do we envision ourselves living here for long term? And so I think it was all of that. One thing that I really liked about McMaster was whenever I came to visit an interview, everybody was very open and everybody was very willing to help you get started and succeed. And so I felt like the barriers to collaboration were very low.
Oh, wow.
Whereas in American universities, the funding structure is different. So everybody tends to build their lab, and many times it's a silo. And so there isn't as much collaboration. And so I think that's what really attracted me to McMaster, that I could see myself collaborating and having all these fun, but not just within my lab, but with other people.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, what I would say is like you bring the fun yourself too. You make it very easy to like talk to and just engage in. And I'm sure they were extremely happy to have someone like yourself who could fit right into that very collaborative environment that you're describing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did the very early days of Tessella really started before it even had a name?
Yeah, it started in the lab, right? And it started through one of these collaborations. So I have a very close colleague and friend, Jeremy Hirota, also co-founder of Tessella,
Amazing.
who I met through one of these events that McMaster holds to bring people from health sciences to engineering and science, right? And I think that we started talking about what his interests were, and I started talking about what I was doing in the lab and what I had interest in. And he came to me with a problem. And I think that was the genesis, right? He told me, I study the lung and I want to make models that we can stretch, that we can mimic the lung and how it works. And I want to be able to mimic healthy lung and diseased lung. And he said, but when I tried to 3D print it, we can't do it. It's not easy. There's no solution for us to really quickly go and 3D print tissue. And so that's when we started working together and hired a co-supervised student, Mabel. She was the very first seed of Tessella because she was coming from industry. So she already had that entrepreneurial mindset, right? And she was very quickly, putting things together where she said, to me in particular, she said, why aren't you commercializing any of this? And I was like, I've never thought about it. And I think I might not have the time. And so she really started pushing things forward, right? And this collaboration has now gone on for several years, 5 years. Wow. And more students have gotten involved. Mabel eventually finished her master's and moved to the States. And so she was not continuing this path, but she planted the seed that now, Tessella came out from.
Wow. I love that a lot because I think it's reflective of you in terms of being able to take feedback. And one of the very first things you said earlier on in this conversation is that your students play such a huge role in the lab and your overall experience. And you can see how you really value the students, whereas they're not just simply looking at you as just give us the answers. But it's really an environment where you can all play together, but you have, that little bit more of experience, but they can still bring their own lens to it. And you're learning from it. You're taking them seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think as we progress in our career, we get older, and yes, we gain experience, but we lose something a little bit, right? We lose the contact with the lab, maybe. We lose the playing in the lab every day and experiencing and finding and seeing something new. And that's where they come up with the best ideas, right? So initially, yes, I can guide them and I can give them a little bit of advice. But by the end of their graduate career, they're the experts. And they're the ones that are telling me, oh, this experiment that you're asking me to do, it's not going to work because it should be done this other way, right? So I think that's really the very rewarding thing in our line of work in academia.
I like that a lot because I love learning and I value other people's opinions in a learning environment a lot because that's where the best solutions come out of. Because when you have so many different minds that think differently, that come from different experiences, and I think a lot of people, will just label that as like diversity, and they try to curate it in a way that you can see, but it's really about the diverse experiences of the people that come together, and that's where a lot of magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only the experiences, but how everyone approaches the problem.
Yeah.
Everyone can approach it differently. And so you can find multiple answers from different people to the same problem, and maybe not any one of them is right, but the sum of all of them might lead to a better
Something
solution,
else.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really the strength of the lab and how we came up with Tessella and the technology that we're using.
Yeah. So let's dive into the technology of
Okay.
it. Great segue. What are you, first of all, let's define what Tessella is doing because
Okay.
I definitely got it wrong. You're not necessarily making human flesh, but human tissue-like material.
Yes, absolutely. You got it perfect. So human-like tissue materials, right? So what the technology is really, if we boil it down to the very essence, is you're creating a gel, right? That gel, if you've ever applied hair gel, that's the consistency of that gel. It's a clear gel. Within that gel, you have proteins, you have other small molecules, right? But the consistency is like a gel that you can push through a syringe nozzle, and out of the other end, you have this thin filament that comes out, okay? But it's still a gel. If you don't do anything with it, you put it in water, it'll dissolve. What you need to do is you need to expose it to light for it to cure, to set into that tissue-like
Mold.
consistency.
Okay.
And so once you set it, now instead of being a gel like hair like gel, now you have Jello.
Okay.
And so that's the consistency, right? You can think of the consistency of Jello. That is a soft material. And so all of our tissues in our body are soft. Well,
Yeah.
many of them, not all. The brain is very soft. The lung is soft. The heart is soft. And you go to harder and harder materials if you look at cartilage. And then really the hardest is the bone,
Yeah.
right? But all of those are examples of tissue.
Yeah. We're definitely going to be showing this. And as you described it, we're going to take a lot of the video from, filming the TV show for this, just so people can actually see
Yeah.
and experience what you just talked about, because it's really, really incredible. One thing I wanted to clarify is the gel, is it once it's exposed to any light or UV light specifically?
So if you think about cells don't like UV light. Cells
Okay.
get damaged by UV light. So we don't want to use UV light, but it is a special kind of light. So it's
Okay.
blue light.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. As long as you're not giving us our secret sauce, your secret sauce. That's very, very cool. So when you first started to look at gel as the solution for, this lung challenge that your coworker was having. What brought that to, the number one potential solution?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, a lot of people have been working on gels and what we call hydrogels, so gels that have a lot of water in them, which is what cells need to live. And the secret sauce and the innovation is not in thinking of the gels themselves as the material to make the tissue. The innovation is really making that gel so that you can print it. And so that's really the key, because you can make gels and you can start with a liquid and then expose them to light and they become gels. But to be able to print it and make structures, now you need that gel to have very specific properties that, once you put it out there, it doesn't turn into a puddle.
Yeah.
Right? So you want that gel to be able to keep a filament shape for long enough that you can shine your light on. And so then when you shine that light on and then you set it, now that filament is more rigid, is jello-like, right? But then you need to be able to stack another filament on top and another filament on top and another filament. And so then you build layer by layer, you build your structure.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge that was not addressed. And that's where the composition that we came up with gives the gel the right properties to be able to print.
So cool. That is incredibly cool. And I'm not a scientist in any way, but the way you're explaining this makes complete sense to me. And I will liken it onto doing my gel nails.
That's a very good analogy.
So, I learned to do my gel nails because one time I was gouged way too much. No one should pay $150 for gel nails. Just putting it out there. Why? It's not like you're saving someone's life with it. But, you put the gel nail on and you can create structures with it. The second the UV light hits it, it sort of sets and forms these, hard shapes that you can wear on your nails consistently.
Exactly.
And to take that concept to create life-changing, material and structures that can impact someone's life is, just like mind-blowing to me. Because, I watched this documentary, and it was a big documentary a few years ago where this particular doctor was saying, he has these plastic trachs that he would put into patients. They get sick, and eventually most of them, I believe, did actually die. Yeah. And so to have something that is now, has the potential to really live up to what he was trying to do is, I think, really, really exciting. And what is the one thing that separates you from that?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I mean, there are a lot of ways to 3D print, right? And we're all familiar with 3D printing hard plastic.
Yes.
But you know that the body is not hard, right? Your body has soft tissue. And most of the times when we're trying to replace something or repair something, we don't want plastic that stays in our body, right? We don't want that.
The body will reject it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do is come up with a material that, yes, it gives structure and it stays in place for just the right amount of time for your body itself to use its mechanisms to build the tissue and to replace that structure. And so the idea is you're providing a scaffold onto which the body repairs, and then that scaffold that gets degraded, right? And then it gets, reabsorbed, eaten by the cells, whatever you want to call it. But the goal and what separates us from those hard implants or even the silicone implants that, are used medically is that we're looking at a material that can serve as a scaffold, but then that scaffold should disappear once the body has regenerated itself.
Yeah. It's really just a structure for the body to say, hey, let's rebuild this really quickly and move on. And I think the easiest analogy for this is also, when you get a really deep gash or wound, right? You go to the hospital, they put the sutures in, or when you do dental work, they put sometimes these, I think they call them dissolvable threads.
Dissolvable thread,
into any of those wounds that you might have. And this is sort of taken that concept with the implant concept and making it all work together in a more complex, life-saving situation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about these dissolvable sutures, it's a perfect analogy. So you are clearly very versed in the topic, but they don't contain cells, right?
No, they
It's
don't.
it's all the
Yeah.
material. And so we can do that with these soft materials. So that's step one. But wouldn't it be really cool if you could then also have that material that has your own cells, right?
Inside
And
of
so
it.
now we're talking about this personalized regenerative medicine. So it's personalized to you with your own cells so that it's not rejected by the body and it actually helps the wound, the organ heal faster. Now, this is not where we are right now.
Yeah.
That is,
In the future.
in the
That's the
future.
goal.
But
Yeah.
that's really what could make these life-changing therapies, right? And that's where, if we could achieve that,
Yeah.
that would be real impact.
I think you will achieve it.
Thank you. I mean, I
Yeah.
hope we do.
Yeah.
We're working hard.
You are. You are. And I think your mission is like in the right place, and you can see like the spider web of all these ideas and things that exist, and they're all colliding into the right moment and the right ways. And that's what innovation really is. And it's this massive gap where, all these different threads should connect, but they don't. And that's the bubble that you're creating. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that we are that bubble, that environment that we're creating, and we talk about our materials being microenvironments for cells. We also want to create that environment within the innovation ecosystem here in Hamilton and Canada, right?
Yeah. And you're doing it. I mean, you've already started with really good research process, right? You've taken this from the labs into sort of real use cases by commercializing it means you have customers.
Yeah.
You have people that buy this and use this in the world today. Who are your customers? Like, who is buying this and who saw, wow, Jose, how did Tesla come up with this? And we can use something like this right now.
Yeah, I mean, our customers are research labs, right? Plain and simple. And how we started along this path and how we started to reach out to customers was we're academics. We have our network of academics.
Yeah.
So the best way to get your product tested and validated is to put it in the hands of the user, right? And I think the team within Tessella has always been very focused, and that's a reality check for us, right? It's always put it in the hands of the customer and then let them test it, and they will tell you if it works or not.
Yes.
Okay. And so we started out with some labs here in Canada that we knew that were facing the same challenges that we face when we were trying to print these tissue structures, and said, look, we have these inks. We think they're great. Now, we are willing to send you some samples for you to try and give us feedback. What we ask for is feedback, because then we can improve the inks, we can improve the process. So that's how we started building the traction of the company. And, initially it was with our academic partners. Now, through commercial partners, they've actually gone word of mouth to other researchers in other places or industry even, and they've actually now told them, you should look at these inks. They can do what you've been trying to do, but you haven't really been able to. So try them out. And so that's how we started, right? So we started out with outreach, sample kits, and then, those beta testers become your first customers.
Yeah. That's very organic.
Yeah.
And
very.
that just sounds like, your student saying, why don't you commercialize this? Just sitting at the back of your mind and percolating. And now you're switching over from just being an academic, not just being an academic, you're a lot of things, but being an academic into the world of business.
Yes.
What was that leap like? Or was it even a leap? I might be judging here.
No, it was a leap. It was a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in academia, you're trained to think in a certain way.
Yes.
And the measures of success in academia are ones. When you go into business, it's a different playbook, I would say, and it requires different skills. And so I think that the biggest challenge for me was to make that jump from academia and knowing that I could do good research and I could have excellent students and I could have papers published, which are great, but they're papers. They're not making an impact out there, right? To then looking at, okay, we have this technology. It might be very simple, but it's solving a problem here. So can we actually have that as, first of all, a business, and then something that makes an impact in someone's life? That's the long-term goal, right? And like you said, it's been growing organically. So we, as a team, have decided that initially we want to have direct contact with the customers, learn from them, and learn their challenges. What is working, what's not working, and what are the features they would like to see from these inks. And in parallel, our research lab is still doing research, is still doing new things, developing new inks that then might someday have other applications, right?
I love this story a lot because to take on a whole new hat and know the measure of success is different, and then have to sort of live up to that level of success in another environment is quite different. And it could, it could hit you as a person really hard and make you feel like you're failing, because the business world, I'm not saying this to make anyone fearful of entering the business world. It's a great place to be, but it can be hard on you as an individual to be rejected over and over, to have people not really understand what you were trying to do and, buy into that vision that you have. And it's no longer a grade on a paper. It's no longer everyone saying, wow, your research numbers were great. But it's just like these people having to accept this innovation and then give you raw, hard feedback like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
This is going to fail. Don't waste your time. Like, how did you handle that?
Well, we're still learning how to handle that. That's the honest answer. But I think academia also prepares you for a lot of failure, because in academia, you do your research and you think it's great, right? And then you put it into a paper and you write this beautiful story, and then you send it to a journal, and then the reviewer said, no, reject it, right? And you have to learn from that and improve it and send it again. And as professors, the same thing. We write a grant. We might be in love with our grant. We send it. Reviewers say, reject it. And so we get a lot of rejection in academia. And I think that builds some toughness into you. Yeah. And into the students too, for sure. Sometimes we have to be very careful that, we don't minimize the students' reaction, because sometimes it's their first rejection, right? And that can be really tough, like you said. Yeah. But over time, you become used to it. Now, when you move to business, it's a different kind of rejection, right? Yes. And so you also have to work and learn through it. I think that the team that I have, my co-founders, now the head of their bioink development, they're all people that are critical, but also very open to accepting criticism and growing together. And so I think that when you have that team, when you know that you have the backing, it's much easier to go out there and put yourself out and fail, right? Because you know that you have support. And yes, we failed a number of times. We've failed to secure funding. We've failed to convince a customer maybe that these were the right inks for them. But in every step we learn, right? And I think that's, as long as we can extract a learning from each one of those failures, then they're not wasted moments. Yeah.
That's such a good clip there. It's not wasted moments in any way. And one of the things, coming into this interview, I heard about a paper that was written a couple of years ago here in Canada, talking about commercialization and research that basically goes into the country and what actually comes out. And if I remember these numbers right, I believe it's 2% to maximum 3% of any research that's done here in Canada is actually commercialized. So to be part of that, 2%, where you were taking something out of just this purely academic exercise into the real world I think it's huge. And I think it's people like you who can pave the way to make sure that research that's being done is so valid to improving the human experience in so many ways, and taking it into the world, not just having it sit and be like, wow, beautiful journal, submission. What are we actually going to do this with? Because a problem solved that's not actually being used is worthless at the end of the day. And I think that's one of the things, and they call it the innovation paradox, which is, I think it's quite sad for a country that's doing so much research, one of the top research countries in the world, to not be putting the results out of what you're doing.
I absolutely agree. I mean, if you look at the statistics, and I think there was a report by Deloitte on the research output from Canada. Canada does very well in research output,
Yes.
right? We publish very well. In fact, we hit above our weight in publishing. And then when you look at patents, we still do quite well. And we're punching above our weight in patents. It's when it comes to translate those patents into some commercialization, right? Where there is some disconnect. And so part of it is that we have startups that get started, and we do have the proper supports to get them in that initial budding stage. But then from there to making it and growing big, that's really where the gap is. And so the programs to really help small startups to succeed, I think that's where the gap lies. The investment is not as big as it is in the US.
Yeah.
And so many times what ends up happening is our startups end up moving to the US and taking the
Innovation
innovations
there.
with them, right? Because they're less risk averse, right? And for some reason or other, here in Canada, investors are more risk averse.
Oh, significantly risk averse. And I, not to bring politics into this, but I think that's what brings us to the position we are today, just in the overall climate. And I think it's important for us to have conversations like this. Obviously, this is not a political platform at all, but I like touching on it because we are the people that are living that everyday rejection of making those innovations that we've created shine in Canada and really take that commercialization to the next level, because we are such a risk-averse society. Is there anything you think about, other than just the funding component of that gap from going from patent to commercialization? What else do you think are some of the challenges that actually exist in really getting it to come to life? Do you think it's maybe the innovators themselves not really feeling like they can make that leap themselves?
So, I mean, I'm not an expert, right?
Yeah,
So I should say
just
I'm
an
not
opinion.
An expert. It's just an opinion. I think part of it is that Canada is a small market, right? And within Canada, because that's your playground, that's where you first want to roll out your products, right? And get some traction, you might not get as many customers as you would in larger economies, right? I think that that's part of it. And I think that one thing that would really help push these technologies out is if companies were provided more support and mentorship on how to quickly export. Because if you can quickly export and sell globally, now you have the whole, the whole world, the whole population. And I think that that might be a valuable connection where there might be some impact that can be made to make our Canadian enterprises more successful.
Yeah. I hope that turns around for us.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I really do. Because, products like, Tesla's is, and you're still very much in your early days and you have customers, which I think when somebody can get a customer in their early day, that shows value right off the top. And, for biosciences as well, too, like your road to commercialization is so long, especially when you have to deal with the human body, you have to go through health regulations, all of these different testings, because right now, are you currently doing testing on pigs right now? Yeah.
So I mean, we're fortunate, to be honest, because we have a product that we can produce quickly at a scale that is relevant for selling. And it's a product that can be used in vitro. That means in cells in the lab. It doesn't need clinical trials or preclinical trials. It doesn't need a human to be able to be deployed.
Okay.
And so researchers can already see benefits by using these materials in their lab.
Wow.
And so that's the first step, right? But obviously, if we want to go to the patient, which is really the end goal, then you have to do a lot more work. And you have to change the materials that you're using and the process by which you make them, because you want to have all the regulatory approvals so that you prove that your material is safe and it can go into a human.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we've already started working with experts in the field of burn wound cares, Dr. Mark Jeschke in Hamilton Health Sciences, who is an expert on burn wound care.
Okay.
Right? And he has already the animal models that can support early development of these technologies. So for us, it's been a very valuable connection where we can take some of our materials that we 3D print in the lab and test it already in a pig model. And so that's preliminary data, but data that's already de-risking the next steps, which would be a full-fledged study
Human
with
trials.
pigs.
Okay, with pigs.
First, right?
Okay.
And then once we have the materials made for use in the clinic, now we can go into clinical trials.
Wow.
But it's a long way. So
It is a long way,
We have
yeah.
to make the materials first that are grade appropriate for human use, and then we can think about the clinical use.
Yeah. I'm thinking your academic experience must prepare you a lot more to be patient along that journey. Because that's a really long road.
Yeah.
That's years in the future. It could be potentially a decade, how do you
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Maybe 5 years max.
Yeah, 5 years. Let's be
5 years. We're
let's be
going to put it
ambitious.
out there. But how do you manage that, to manage your own expectations in terms of how do we move this business along? Because again, when we look at the business side of it, investors who are needed in such, what's considered deep tech, lots of money is needed to keep you going that whole way with very little money coming in from research before it really takes off.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And this is something that my co-founders and I have been, talking a lot about. It's when do we take in external investment and how do we go about growing the company? And it was, early on decided that we were going to push the research grade inks as far as we could organically, right? And that means we don't have a lot of cash inflow. We don't have a lot of support. We don't have investors other than McMaster, who gave us the McMaster Seed Fund, which we're very grateful for.
Amazing. Congrats.
That's really allowed us to make a push to put these products in the market. But beyond that, if we want to go to the clinic, we know that we're going to need a much larger investment.
Yes.
But what we can do to make sure that we're more successful in that space is to do all the experiments that need to be done to de-risk the investment, right? To show the investors that there's something that can work and will work if we have the money to make it.
Yeah.
And so you asked me, how do I remain patient, or how do I manage that, right? I think from the science perspective, I'm not worried.
Okay.
Because I know that it will happen. I'm more worried about from the human perspective, right? Because once you start an enterprise and once you hire people, now you're responsible for them. And even if I'm not drawing a salary from Tessella, we want to be able to support those people that we're hiring. And so I think that that's where you have to bring in, the patience and the balance and really be creative on how you can make the most out of the resources you have.
Yeah. The quintessential entrepreneurial struggle.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that a lot in our recent conversations is, managing your resources and people really not understanding that entrepreneurs take care of themselves last in a lot of ways when they are building businesses. So people might make it look really glamorous on social media. You're on yachts every other week. You're going to Saint-Tropez, you're in Capri another day. All of that stuff. But the road before you even get there is a lot of putting everybody else in front of you to make sure that you can make this vision you have actually come to life.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, again, I go back to the team, right? The team that I have is phenomenal, right? It's very supportive. We're all working towards the same goal. And I think there's very good communication between the team members that, we're all fighting to make this happen. And we try to advance, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. You don't see all the work and all the tribulations that you go before you can make it big.
Yeah.
We're not there. We're nowhere near there. But hopefully one day there will be an impact on the clinic, and that's really the essence, right? If you can make an impact in someone's life, yachts aside and all that stuff, right? I think that's the most valuable thing.
Yeah. I'm very excited for when that happens. And when it happens, you'll be right back in our studio so we can celebrate it.
I would be.
Yeah. So, when you think about, jumping into entrepreneurship and your family seeing you go from academic to entrepreneurship, but really living in two worlds at this point.
Yep.
What was their take on that?
I have an incredibly supportive partner and an incredibly supportive family. They put up with my projects. And my wife tells me every 5 years you need a new project. First, you needed to get tenure. Then you open this microscopy facility, CALM at McMaster, right? Now it's an enterprise. It's like every 5 years you need something new to get you going and to keep you excited, right? And she's very understanding, and the whole family is very understanding and very supportive of the long nights, long weekends, and doing a lot more work while everyone else is having fun or doing some other things. But I think it's a balance. You also have to make sure that you have time to be with your family, to attend the events that are important for the family too. And like I said, I'm incredibly fortunate to have that support structure around me.
Yeah. You absolutely need it.
Yeah.
You absolutely, somewhere to go when it's safe and comfortable where you can recharge.
Yeah. And it's, again, the culture at Tessella is, if we celebrate with the families, because without the families, we're not there.
Yeah. They're supporting you while you were off running around, getting the things done all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we celebrate together, and that's the fun part.
That's amazing. So as we, wrap up the podcast, what we love to ask is 3 questions. And I'll give you the first one. In your entrepreneurial journey so far, what is one thing you want to leave behind?
I think the notion that I'm not made for entrepreneurship, right? Being able to come out of that academic mindset. And I think, every day that we do a new pitch, a new application, we have a new customer, I'm convincing myself more and more that I am an entrepreneur, right? And I think that that's one thing that I would like to leave behind. I don't want to have that mindset that maybe I started out with, that, I don't know if I'm cut out to do this, and have more confidence, right, as we go forward.
Well, I'm telling you, Jose, you are an entrepreneur.
Oh, thank you.
You absolutely are. I think you embody the true essence of an entrepreneur. And that's really being committed to, first and foremost, being committed to what you're doing, how you're doing it, and delivering value at the end of the day. And you can see based on conversations and the products you're putting out there, you're putting your all into it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I go back to the team. Without the team, this wouldn't be moving forward. So,
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
David, who are my co-founders, and now Eduardo, who is the hire that we brought on. Like, they're all an amazing team.
Yeah.
And so I want to give them a shout out too.
Absolutely.
Because without them, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah, shout out to the team. Keep going. So our second question is, what's the biggest thing you've learned so far?
The biggest thing I've learned is that what you think is right for the market might not be right for the market. That you need to listen to the customer. And I think that that's something that I value a lot, because you can go into the market and think you have the most wonderful product. But if the customer doesn't like it, or if the customer doesn't feel comfortable with it, then your market doesn't exist. And so I think, knowing when to pivot, knowing when to change what you're doing or the way that you're doing things, listening to the customer, I think that's really, really valuable.
Yeah. I feel like there's a story behind this. What's the story behind this, Jose?
As an academic, we like exploring 1,000 different directions. And so it would be very easy for us to make 50 different inks, right? And an ink for every niche application that you could imagine. And early on, we had a consultant that worked with us and said, I've worked in the ink industry, in the bioink industry, and the last thing that the market wants is 50 inks. The one thing that the market wants is an ink that is general enough that satisfies most people's needs. And I think that that's what you should focus on, right? And so it was coming from an advisor, and I think that was very valuable. And then we did hear some comments from customers saying, what you are providing is great for this particular application. Now, for us to be able to be successful in our work, we need X and Y, right? And when you hear that X and Y multiple times from multiple customers, now it becomes a real lesson, right?
Yes.
That you have to listen to. And if we are stubborn, then we don't succeed. And so I think that's a little bit of the biggest learning that I've taken, where in academia you might be stubborn and you might succeed. Here we have to listen to the customers.
You might succeed.
Might.
You might succeed. Yeah. But this you definitely won't if you're not listening to your customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's really the most useful.
Yeah. That's, I think, every entrepreneur needs to adopt that mindset. Within the guidelines of still being true to what your mission is.
Yes.
And that's often a very hard, fine line to walk, because sometimes people overtake input from customers and then they end up with a Frankenstein innovation. So there's this balance in being confident in what the mission is and what you're really trying to accomplish while taking feedback to actually improve that.
Yeah. And I think, at the end of the day, you're putting out a product, and the product is not you as a person. And I think that's also really important, because, sometimes we get so involved in the company that then we sort of forget everything that came before that, right?
Yeah. Don't forget that. That's the stuff that keeps you going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what's the one thing you want to take into the future with you?
Into the future, I want to take my team with me into the future. I think that if we can keep the team going, they are extremely talented people. They are very creative. They're innovative. They're critical, right? And that's great. They don't let me get away with nonsense. So it's a very good working team. And so I think, the longer we can keep working together and working towards a mission that is fulfilling everyone's expectations and ambitions, I think that's the furthest we're going to be able to go.
Yeah, I love that. And I can say that about our Buzzworthy team as well, too. Them not letting you go off the rails is so good, because sometimes you're just so passionate about what you want, and they will help reground you. And that's the value of a team, and taking them into the future is super, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. This has been a fantastic conversation, Jose.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's been lovely. You're a great interviewer, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and stay tuned for our next episode. Usually we don't actually do this, but this is a quite unique opportunity for the podcast where we can showcase some groundbreaking innovation in the regenerative medicine space coming out of McMaster University with Tessella Biosciences. And we have Eduardo Gonzalez Martinez here with us, who is the head of product development here at Tessella. And we have some samples on the table, which we'll talk about, but you can also catch that on our TV show where we go in depth with. And I really wanted to talk to Eduardo about, being a part of such groundbreaking research that took itself out of the lab into the real world. And now you're the one helping continue the product development of these solutions. Did you ever think as a child this is something you'd be doing?
Honestly, no. I was really far from that because my dad is a scientist, but I came from Cuba, and not the main city of Cuba. I'm country feel, like really small town.
Shout out your town. Where are you from?
Yes, I'm from, it's La Copa is the name of my really small town. Literally, we call it a batey. There was not street in there. It was just no pavement.
Road.
Yeah, no roads. So I'm really proud of that. So can you imagine that? I never imagined I was going to go from there to here. But going back to your point, my dad was a scientist, but as you can imagine, there was not science community in there. So he used to have to travel really far, and he has to spend the whole week at job, no seeing us, and then he only see us on the weekend. So as you can imagine, also was a really small child. I was like, I don't want to do science because science is what is putting me apart from my dad.
Yeah.
But obviously, when you grow a little bit, you see that science is magic. Science is what is moving the world forward. And, after grow a little bit, was a teenager, I started to fall in love of what my dad was doing, how he was trying to fight for us, but doing what he liked it. So I remember those times, and I started to learn from him.
What kind of scientist was your dad?
So my dad is he's working right now in dental implants. So he's a mechanical engineering. He has a PhD in mechanical engineering. But he's working at the University of Havana, and he's also teaching. So he's also a professor, academic, but also have some relationship with companies. So the idea is working behind, trying to improve how implants and dental implants integrate with your body better.
Wow.
So
you're really following his footsteps in being in academia and creating things.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that.
That's amazing. I'm sure your dad is very proud of you as well, too.
I hope so.
So when you first came into Tessella, and your task was to help improve this product that they already had, how did you feel about that task?
Well, that was really challenging for me because, I get to Tessella like around a year ago. But obviously, I know about the company way before that. I saw the company since the beginning, even if I wasn't part of the company, because the company is spun out from Jose's group, and I was part of Jose's group, working in a totally different research line. But I was seeing how my partner were, working on the company, trying to build that company. So I was really excited. And when I saw that they were, moving forward, creating the company, and they gave me the opportunity to start, it was really challenging for me because it was huge responsibility. They had this baby that they were moving forward, and for me it was extremely challenging to going back with Jose, with the group, trying to build this, but at the same time, it's extremely rewarding to see how customers love this, being able to talk to customer, learning a lot of new stuff because, we're a startup company, so you have to wear many different hats. So you have to go from development, but at the same time, you have to talk to the supplier of your equipment. So you have to learn how to get the best prices for equipment. So but it's cool. At the end, it's difficult, but you learn that and you'll fall in love with all that everyday operations of the company. That's something great that I really appreciate because working R&D is great and you learn that through academia. But working how the company build, how all the pieces, how the engine go together and create this company is something that I really appreciate and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's, I can feel your passion about everything you're talking about, even though you're like, this was challenging, but you can tell that you loved that challenge. It's a part of what keeps you excited about building with Tessella. So what do you see in the future as head of product development?
Ooh.
What do you hope for Tessella in the next year and then maybe the next 5 years?
Okay, that's a tough one. But I think that first we have to establish these customers. So we have already started to validate our inks with academic labs. That is quite important because they're gonna be doing the de-risking and the validation for bigger companies to go through. So I would love to go within this first year, having the first approach to companies that are in the tissue models, regenerative medicine, to start to, branding and building with them, having the first approaches in there. That's great, and I think that's feasible, and we're on the right path for doing that. So having that opportunity will be great because we're going to start to see the real impact, and we are going to see the first extremely complicated challenges, which is what they really, really want from us, and we have to manage that. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, because being in the research environment and being in the commercial environment where you might be dealing with pharmaceutical companies or other bioengineering companies that are making things that might use this. They operate very differently, right? It's about what's my cost per unit? What, am I going to get this in time? Is the quality going to last long enough? And it's a whole different set of pressures you're going to be under, but you're excited for that.
I'm really excited because, as I mentioned, I want to see, I really believe in what we're doing, and I really believe in the impact that we may have in the future, which is the most important part. So to follow up on your question, in the next 5 years, not only regenerative medicine, I would love to go to something beautiful too, which is going to be trying to replace animal models with our models. Because the only way right now that we have to test a new drug, for example, or new, anything new, like a new replacement for bones or any organ, is right now in animals. Now, you don't want that. So you want to, because the animals at the end have to suffer. Sadly, that is the only way at the moment. But all the agencies right now are pushing toward trying to remove that and going toward 3D bioprinting, organ on a chip, different technology that will replace that. So I would love to see that what we're offering is going to be having an impact not only for human but also for animals. So if we're able to replace that, ethically it's going to be great, and at the same time for human too, because can't you imagine trying to make a study with animals take years. You have to get the animals, all the approvals, all the protocols. So we're going to be making ideally easier the life for not only for the researchers but also for the people in charge of creating all those protocols. It's going to be much easier with the 3D bioprinting protocol. You don't have to worry about the animals. It's just 3D bioprinting. And time. We'll shorten time too, because a drug now can take 10 years. A vaccine from conception to be actually commercializable, it can take up to 10 years. And we do not want that. We don't want that, and we need shorter times. So ideally, we could short this time like a lot using 3D bioprinting models instead of these animal models. So that's what I envision for the company to next time.
That is very, very exciting. And what I envision, mostly because of this nose here, maybe This is the new rhinoplasty. Maybe if you need a new nose, it's going to be a 3D printed nose by Tessella Biosciences.
Lovely.
And I'm excited for a world like that. So thank you for watching and tune in next time.